For this presentation, I'm going to discuss soft tissue techniques for the plantar surface of the foot. And there is a condition known as plantar fasciitis. I'm not saying I'm going to specifically treat that condition because I'm going to treat in general foot conditions. But no doubt the focus will be around that sort of area of the foot. Now, I'm going to use a fascial wax by Songbird, so a little bit, not much, and apply that onto the plantar surface of the foot. Okay, then you can just blend all that in. Try not for the foot to shine. You almost want it to have like a little sheen, yeah, to that sort of area. Now, the patient is going to be moving as we go through all the techniques here. So it's almost like massage with motion. I don't call it that particularly, but it, if you want to use that phrase, that's fine, because that's what we're simply doing. We're utilizing a soft tissue technique, and the patient is going through active range of motion. So what we're going to do, the patient is going to be lifting a foot like this. This is known as dorsiflexion, and they are going to go into plantar flexion. I might get the patient to turn the foot this way, which is known as inversion, and then this way we will go into eversion. So what we're going to do first of all is let the patient bring the foot up here. Now, there are many techniques we can use. So I'm going to start with almost on the back of my sort of like hand here, my proximal phalanx here and my knuckle, if you like. And I'm going to almost like apply pressure. And what we're going to do is we are going to allow him to start in plantar, which shortens the tissues. And then he is then going to bring the foot up. Okay, so we'll start here. So I'm going to apply some pressure. When you're ready, he is going to then bring his foot up into dorsiflexion. And he's off again and again. So I'm going to use pressure coming through that. You can see that he naturally wants to bring the toes up and out, which is fine. Off you go again, because it will work. Think of other muscles that control the toes, which would be the flexor digitorum longus. Okay, and then we've also got the great toe, which is called the hallux. So we've got the flexor hallucis longus as well. Obviously we have the brevis muscles, which are the shorter ones. Okay, when you're ready, off you go. And we are working deep into that sort of area. Good. And again, off you go. The plantar fascia, okay, is a connective tissue that attaches from that medial side of the calcaneus around here. And then it almost spans out like 5 fingers as it comes up. But most of the time it tends to be pain around that sort of area where my thumb is. So these techniques would be okay. There's many causes of that condition. Okay, but if you do have someone with plantar pain, then these techniques would be good. Off you go. So the patient is just going to repeat that motion. I tend to do this because it's got a solid structure, if you like, the foot, because we weight bear on it all day, every day. Okay, then we can use maybe more pressure than you would maybe on the dorsal surface of the foot. Okay, so I'm going to be working around the area. But what I like to do sometimes is, this is nice, I use that technique often. But then if I use my thumbs, I don't use a single thumb, I try to reinforce my thumb. Okay, so one thumb reinforced onto the other one. Start, doesn't matter where you start. We'll start in this case on the lateral side. When you're ready, Max? And then we can just glide on that lateral side. Good. And then slowly come down towards the central. Good. It tends to have like a bubble wrap sort of sensation coming down. It's hard to say exactly what that is from there. And again, you okay? Pressure?
Great.
Okay, but it's very effective, these techniques. And again. Good. You can almost try this as a little test. If you ask your patient to stand and then ask them to slowly reach to touch their toes, and if they cannot reach, maybe just measure that distance. Okay, so let's say they are 10 centimeters from the ground, right, when they're bending forward. Just watch it doesn't irritate the back. And then do these techniques on both bilateral, both feet, not at the same time, but obviously one side then the other side. And then retest the distance, and you'll be amazed that you'll probably see an improvement. Okay, and I guarantee it will improve by 2 or 3 centimeters. Why? Because when you think about it, the plantar fascia, if you think about like the Tom Myers fascial lines, okay, the anatomy trains, there's one, he starts on the superficial back line, which starts at the plantar fascia, then it becomes the Achilles tendon, and then the 2 heads of the gastroc become the 3 heads of the hamstring, and then it goes all the way up to the occipital bone. Okay, so we are connected by this long, and he has many of them in his book. Okay, so by treating this sort of area, has a relationship to the rest of the body. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Try that test if you want to. So using thumbs again, when you're ready, off you go. From there. If you don't like to do the dorsiflexion of a whole foot, then what you can do is you can just simply extend the toes. So we can start in flexion, watch you don't get cramp, and off you go, and you just extend in the toes. Good. And you can work through that. These are some of my favorite techniques from there. Some people are ticklish, but it's not a ticklish sort of pressure. It's quite firm pressure. And I think it feels quite nice to that area. I have to be careful of Max because he does have a couple of little blisters here where he's been running. So I don't want to be irritating him. And again, working through. Okay, so back to the knuckles, I can vary it. Off you go again. From there, I can change my angles. Okay, it fits nice. The shape of the hand typically fits nice into the plantar surface. And off you go again. I can glide, focusing on that sort of middle knuckle pressure. Okay.
Perfect.
Good. And again, coming down through that. Can you see my patient wanted a little perform like a natural eversion? Try that, Max. So just bring your foot the other way. The other way. Eversion. There we go. Okay, so we can get, but every technique I'm doing, the patient is moving for each of that. Okay, just going to do a little cross technique here. So same again, so you can lift your foot up, good. And I'm going to cross the fibers and come off. Off you go again. Gliding, almost like a transversing of the tissues. As long as your thumbs are kept in this horizontal plane, it's okay. Where the thumbs have a problem is where you try to push and you're almost like hyperextend the thumb coming across there. Technique okay?
Yeah.
Working there. Okay, and then I'll probably do the same on the other foot, depending what I found was the condition. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.
Hi, I'm Davey, CEO of Massage and Myotherapy Australia, and welcome to the Connect Show for July. And here I'm with my guest, Ryan Hutton, I nearly forgot your surname, who's from Bupa, who is the Ancillary Strategic Partnership and Industry Relations Manager. So thanks for coming on the show, Ryan.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Anne, for having me.
Now, that's a huge title. What does that actually mean?
It is a long title with a lot of words, but essentially my role for Bupa is to assist with the management of the ancillary landscape. Now, what that looks like in the first part of my title is what we know is there's a lot of corporatization that's happening with ancillary and allied health, with some big groups being formed. And so to understand and unpack that for Bupa, it's really important to actually have a level of understanding from a senior management position of these businesses as to what their strategy is, what their goals are, and then feed that through to Bupa. From the second half of my role, as it's industry relations. So looking after industry peak bodies such as yourselves, and then also working with the broader PHI landscape to look at areas of concern, areas that need addressing, as well as looking at reforms or changes that we want to lobby for on behalf of all of the funds to government.
Oh, right. And PHI being private health industry, correct?
Being private health insurance, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And that touches on a good point, because us as an association have built a really good relationship with Bupa, because we send thousands of lines of data to Bupa every fortnight, I think it may be,
Yep.
monthly. Yeah. And you have to abide by your legislative requirements as well, correct? Yeah.
We do. We are, unbeknownst to a lot of people, we are actually one of the highest regulated industries in Australia as a health insurer. So, I often tell customers or people that we can't blow our nose unless the government gives us a tissue. It's one of those things. We are heavily regulated and watched by APRA, for example, in terms of how we actually conduct our business. And then we also have the PHI Act, which governs health insurance here in Australia, and the provisions by which we're allowed to operate and what we're allowed to pay for as a benefit on behalf of our customers.
And it is a little different for our industry because we're an unregulated industry working in a highly regulated space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So from that perspective, obviously, we've worked together very closely on looking at things like the recognition criteria. What is the benchmark we want to set for practitioners as a minimum standard for Bupa to recognize their clinical skill sets for us to be able to pay a benefit on behalf of our members for their treatments?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, whilst practitioners are important to Bupa, your members are your prime concern as well.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think from, again, a lot of people don't know that globally Bupa is a not-for-profit organisation. We are for-profit here in Australia, of course, but all the money that we make as a business is reinvested into healthcare. We don't have shareholders globally.
And of course, we're, with our industry, with massage and myotherapy, we're an unregulated industry working in a highly regulated space, which brings other accreditation issues or requirements.
Absolutely, and absolutely. And I think from our perspective, we've worked closely together to look at what that minimum standard of education, for example, is that we would want to consider in order for us to recognise providers in your space, which is unregulated, so that we can pay the correct benefits for the members for the improvement of their health. So that's one way in which that we've been working closely together to ensure that we are lifting the standard in healthcare, number one, but also making sure that the accessibility to healthcare is still there. So recognition of prior learning and of education that's been received by practitioners in your space is highly important, incredibly important. And so the recognition criteria for us that we've established has really enabled us to improve access to healthcare for our customers and ensure that it's quality care that's being delivered.
Yeah, which is what we all want, basically. Then, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as far as for our practitioners, how, what do therapists need to know to ensure that they do meet that Bupa requirement?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. So obviously we do have our ancillary provider terms, and I encourage all providers to continually make sure they're up to date with those terms. Of course, we would notify you through the associations of any changes to those terms, as we did previously this year. But essentially what we need to identify is the clinical need for treatment. Okay, so it's really important that providers maintain appropriate record keeping when having that interaction with a customer for the purposes of ameliorating a clinical condition. So clinical record keeping, absolutely essential. Identifying why the need exists and how the patient is actually responding to that level of intervention is critically important.
Yeah, clinic notes are a huge requirement, and they can be done in all sorts of ways. So we, as an association, do have a minimum requirement. We have clinical guidelines, clinical record keeping guidelines. We have templates, and I'm sure Bupa has. Well, I do know on the Bupa website, you've got listed what needs to be included in clinical records.
Absolutely. So not just the patient being seen and when they're being seen, but again, how are they going with their treatment? What is the treatment plan? For other professions, not too dissimilar to what the work is that is done by massage and myotherapy providers. They have a plan. The practitioner knows, as great practitioners do know what the treatment plan should look like or what the intervention plan should look like for a patient. And so outlining that, making sure the customer is aware of that as well is also vitally important. The better we can educate our providers to have that in place, the better the outcomes are going to be, not just for the provider themselves in terms of any interaction we have with them. So obviously, we do audit some providers from time to time, but also the patient has a lot more comfortability in how they're being assessed and treated as an individual. And I think, as a customer who receives care, I want to know what's happening to me equally as much as, for example, the health fund would need to know that we're paying the right benefits. I think it needs to be both. It needs to be considered from both sides.
Absolutely. And, Bupa isn't in the business of disenfranchising providers. There's just rules that need to be abided by.
And this is the thing, and we certainly know, absolutely, and we certainly know, that 99% of providers absolutely do the right thing by their customers and by health funds. We know that. And it's really incumbent upon us to recognise that. So for those that are doing the right thing, thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
Well, the reason the rules are in place is to actually identify which ones aren't. There is, unfortunately, in all industries, not just in healthcare, but in all industries, there is a propensity for people to do the wrong thing. And so for us, it's really important that we identify that, call it out for what it is, and look to mitigate those circumstances where we identify them.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be, ignorance is no excuse, but we could move into the area of fraudulent use of provider numbers. Some people, they don't know that they are responsible entirely for their number, and it's their number and their number alone. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we picked up, automation has gone a long way to improving, how we actually track and monitor provider behavior, all right, and in terms of claims that are submitted through to Bupa. Absolutely. One of the things that is often forgotten, and we know that it happens quite a lot, is that practitioners are very transient. They move between businesses or move between locations regularly. What is often forgotten is that they need to close off the practice locations where they've stopped working, because particularly if those locations do have things like electronic claiming available to them, those numbers remain active and remain the responsibility of the individual.
Yeah.
But if they're not there and someone else has taken advantage of the use of those old provider numbers, it's the provider themselves that's going to be the one at fault. So it's really important, and I encourage everyone to think about what locations they're working at currently, updating their records with the association to ensure that anywhere where they previously worked that they no longer work are closed off. That then from yourselves and is sent through to us. We then close off the capability for anyone to misuse those old provider numbers.
Protecting the practitioner, and there's a high cost of fraud in
there is, and it's
yeah.
There is, absolutely, but it's not just from the industry as well, and this is really, really important. Unfortunately, we do have members of the public that are also trying to fraudulently or obtain money from us as a fund. Fraud just doesn't exist on the provider side, but it also sits on the customer side as well. Quite often, we will see customers submitting claims, reporting to have seen a practitioner, and that practitioner has no idea. The only way that we pick up on it is in the analytics to say, hang on a minute, how can, for example, one person be in 2 locations on the same day? Or how can one person see so many people in one, at one time? There's a lot of different triggers that actually come into effect when we look at who do we contact to actually get a little bit more information about what has really happened. It could be that it is the provider that we potentially are just wanting to seek some information from for the purposes of identifying if the member has submitted legitimate claims to us or not.
Which that was going to be my next question about analysing the data in the background against their peers. Because if you would, you could average out 5, 6, 7 massage a day for one practitioner, but if suddenly that jumps to 18 on any given day, well, what practitioner can do 18 massages in one day?
And that's what you were saying before about provider number sharing. So, where we've got potential risk associated with, sharing a provider number with someone that doesn't meet the qualifications that we've set as a business for recognition of services from a practitioner. So we've got that, as I said, we're not ashamed to say we are setting the benchmark very high for quality. And for those that don't meet that criteria, we haven't provided them a provider number. So I encourage all providers to only be the ones that use that provider number and not to share that number with others that don't meet our criteria. Really important.
Yeah, and important for our members to understand that it is their responsibility, regardless of not knowing, and there can be an explanation, it is still your responsibility for that private health number. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as far as, on that topic, receipt requirements, we know our members know what to put into clinic notes. Well, they should. And, there's receipt requirements. Every health fund is different. I understand that. And, one health fund has just said they will no longer accept handwritten receipts, which I thought had already happened. But anyway, they have definitely drawn a line in the sand and said, no, what are Bupa's requirements as far as what should be in it, electronic? Yeah,
no, good question. Look, and again, we do stipulate this in our ancillary provider terms, so really encourage everyone to look into that. But essentially, identifying 2 things is critical, or 3 things is critical. Firstly, who has provided the service? who has received the service, and where was the service undertaken. They're the three things that essentially should be included in all receipts. So if we're talking about the first part, who provided the service, the name and the provider number of the person delivering the service. Who has received the service, what was the customer's name? You know, if there's space on the receipt to include the Bupa membership number, sure, include that as well. The third one, the location. Where is the business located? There will be indicators, in response to where that service was undertaken. It should marry up with the provider number that's been issued to you by us. So whether that's a shop number or a building address, an ABN, all of those become critically important to identify who provided the service, who was the service for, and where was the service provided. And of course, the most obvious one, when was the service provided? The date of service is critically important.
And you do high caps, you do electronic claiming, Bupa, yeah?
Absolutely, absolutely. So from our perspective, high caps is just one intermediary that is available, for electronic lodgement of claims. It is twofold for us. First one being it's a great customer experience for us, because the customer for the main is only then needing to transact for that one service once. What I mean by that is we're processing the claim, paying the provider directly any benefits owed to them by the fund, and the customer is then responsible to just pay any out of pocket. Without having electronic claiming, the customer probably has 2 or 3 interactions for that one service, being that they've got to pay the provider, and then they've got to either come to Bupa or process the claim themselves through our My Bupa claiming channel and wait for us to refund the money to them. So for ease of transaction, absolutely. For a better customer experience in terms of only having to pay the out-of-pocket, quite often for a customer, one of the concerns they have is the out-of-pocket cost of treatment that prohibits them from actually undertaking treatment in the first place. So by us being able to pay on-the-spot claims, it helps the customer to understand how much is it actually going to cost me as an individual out of my pocket, and they then have a greater propensity to then seek continual care, because they can then budget and plan accordingly what intervention they do need. Absolutely.
Which takes us back to that fraud question of whatever electronic, whether it's health point, high caps, whatever, when you leave a practice insure, you remove your details from that terminal. It's not a global thing. It is stored on the terminal. Am I correct in saying that?
It is. It's stored on the terminal. So there's 2 elements to that. The easiest way is obviously to contact yourselves and get you to update each of the funds, Bupa, with the fact that a provider number needs to be closed off, and we will close it off in our system. If in the event that the provider number stays open with whatever platform is being used for electronic claiming, when that claim is attempted to be processed with the fund will reject the claim, because we won't recognize that provider number anymore.
Right.
So one phone call to you guys can solve all that problem.
Yes, exactly. So when Bupa contact a practitioner, they shouldn't, because everyone's scared of the word audit for a start. They shouldn't be afraid to provide any information that Bupa request.
No, look, I would say it's the opportunity for what I call the right of reply. Yes, we've identified certain trends or certain actions or activity that may warrant us contacting a provider for more information. That more information can actually help us understand how it is you are treating patients. Fundamentally, we know that the concepts that are held by practitioners may vary between one another.
Yes.
And it's often really important for us to understand what is the philosophy underpinning the treatment plan that you are prescribing to your customers or your members or your patients, whatever you wish whatever you choose to call them. For me, it's an opportunity, as I said, to present those services, those claims, those clinical records that then support the treatment plan that you've put in place. Secondly, it then gives us an opportunity to provide feedback to the practitioner themselves. Once we've got that, once we understand a lot more, we can then actually help and assist the practitioner in identifying maybe some gaps or deficiencies according to our ancillary provider terms that may still be missing. So don't be afraid to send it through to us, for us to have a look at it, for us to get a better understanding, and then for us to provide constructive feedback to yourselves about what it is that may improve your ability to maintain those clinical records to a standard that we've actually outlined in our terms.
And Bupa is, well, massage and myotherapy has come a long way over the past decade or more. It is entrenched in the health fund space, in the health sector, and it is a profession, and and that's how Bupa treats it.
Exactly right. The clinical efficacy of massage therapy is absolutely known. Okay,
Yes.
for rehabilitation of musculoskeletal injury, the evidence is very, very clear. It is a fundamental part of healthcare, and so just like any other profession that keeps clinical records on the treatment plans prescribed to their patients and on the progress of the treated condition, the same rules would apply here for massage and myotherapists.
As
Absolutely.
for any allied
As
health,
for any other,
instance.
exactly right.
Yeah. Oh. Well, and have you got anything that you'd like to say to our members as a closing statement, or not?
Look, I think my closing statement is that we really appreciate the work and the effort that goes into the care and safety of our customers. We know that COVID has been a trying time for a lot of businesses, particularly in healthcare. When you talk about the close nature of a patient and practitioner interaction, we can understand the concerns that have been put in place with regards to this post-COVID world we're living in. So my encouragement would be, let's all do our part to improve, infection control and safety in those settings for our customers. Let's get our customers feeling like they are in a safe space for treatment and care, and let's continue to support their clinical needs. And as I said, I really want to thank all of our practitioners that are recognised by Bupa through yourselves, Anne, that have done an amazing job in making sure that our customers have care available to them to help rehabilitate any chronic conditions or any injuries that they have.
Yeah, it certainly hasn't been easy for a lot of industries, not
no,
just
definitely not.
Yes.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Well, we if our members go to our website, there are links to Bupa's ancillary provider terms and conditions, but of course, our members can contact us directly if they have any questions about health fund provider status and the like. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been great. And I look forward to our next chat. Yeah.
Absolute pleasure, Anne. No, thank you for the opportunity. I wish everyone well and safe and all the best for the remainder of 2021, and look forward to catching up with you again soon, Anne. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Are you looking for ways to build your practice or connect with more of your ideal patients? Perhaps you're already busy but need ways to simplify or level up your practice management. Whatever your needs, we've got you covered. Introducing My Appointments, a revolutionary all-in-one practice management solution that will stimulate practice growth, reduce administrative burdens, decrease running costs, and help you build and manage your ideal practice. With multiple inbuilt services including appointment keeping, payment processing, customizable online intake forms, high caps, and secure client records, My Appointments has everything you need in one user-friendly place. Our integrated online payment gateway and instant high caps processing will help you stay on top of your invoicing with no setup or monthly fees or the need for a terminal. Our free practitioner app helps you manage your practice while on the go, including processing payments, taking treatment notes, or booking appointments no matter where you are. From their app, patients can also keep track of upcoming appointments and pay invoices, view prescribed products and treatment recommendations, as well as book appointments 24/7. By simplifying practice management, My Appointments will help your business thrive so you can focus on what you do best, treating your clients. Unlike other platforms that charge hundreds of dollars per month, My Appointments is free, no ongoing or upfront fees, Simply pay for what you use. Our competitively priced paid features include SMS starting from 11 to 15 cents per message and payment processing at 1.5 plus 25 cents per transaction, no hidden costs and no other fees. As a valued member of Massage and Myotherapy Australia, we have a special offer for you. Not only do you get first access to our platform once launched, but you'll also receive SMS messages for just 9 cents, plus 50 free. And if you are a certified specialist, you'll receive 100 free SMS messages. By delivering simplified business and marketing solutions and connecting more patients to practitioners, we can help you maximise the potential of your business. Your success is our success. My Appointments, by practitioners, for practitioners.